As excited as I am about a lot of the games coming out this fall, I'd be lying to you if I said I felt like we were getting a good value for the money that we're putting in for a lot of these titles. And value is something that I talk a lot about on this channel. I've done it, over the years on numerous things. A lot of times I'll do reviews that I say, is this game worth $60? And that's because I think it's an important question. And sometimes I think that question is more important than whether or not the game's good. Sometimes you can have a good game that's still not worth $60. And sometimes I catch a bit of hell for telling you this. I said early on, whenever I was paying attention to the order, I said this game isn't worth $60. I played Until Dawn. I enjoyed it, but I said this game isn't worth $60. Games that I can rent and spend a couple of days playing, a few hours here and there. I'm not even talking about, renting a game and playing it all day long. Just here and there and still beating it and be done with it. I don't consider that a quality AAA experience, and I don't consider that a good $60 value for my money. It's just my opinion. Titanfall was another game that I felt wasn't worth $60 at launch, and I'm afraid that we're seeing more games come out with less content, which means less value to me, with publishers still charging the same price for admission. And value is important. I know a lot of people like to brag and, almost make fun of people who, talk about value, who, they'll say, go out and get a good job if you don't have the money to buy games or whatever else. Look, I live a pretty fortunate life right now. I live comfortably. I don't have a whole lot of money, but also I don't need a whole lot of money because, I live comfortably on what I have. I don't have a whole lot of expenses, don't have a whole lot of debt. Buying games isn't a problem. If I want a game, I can go out and buy it tomorrow. But I am still very mindful of my spending. I look for sales, and I don't invest in something unless I think I'm going to get a lot of playtime out of it. Growing up, things were very different than what they were today sometimes. In the South, we say there's the poor and then you got the po. And, I've seen poverty, so I'm not saying that we lived in poverty. But, whenever I was really young, there were periods where we didn't have a whole lot. Dad, he would work 3 jobs at one time. He was a firefighter, he would bag groceries at the grocery store, and he also worked at Sears. And all of that just to keep food on the table for me and my brother and my mom. So, I learned early on the value of $1. And I knew Dad wasn't at home as much because he was out working. And the reason he was tired whenever he was home was because we needed money and he was out working. Whenever I was a baby, we lived in one room of the house during the winter because my parents could only afford to heat one room of the house. There were nights where I remember going to bed hungry. I remember one night getting up and putting mustard on an old piece of bread just to eat it so my stomach would stop growling, and I about threw up because it was so nasty tasting. Going and getting a Happy Meal at McDonald's was something that was a special occasion in our family. One Christmas, my Christmas was one Matchbox car that my dad picked up. And it was actually a Matchbox car that I already had. But I didn't dare tell him that. I just hugged his neck and let him know how happy I was that he got me anything at all. And I knew other kids wouldn't have a Christmas at all. They wouldn't get anything, so I was happy with what I got. Now, later on in life, things got much easier, and I don't recall many days going without. Once we got older, Dad got a better job, and it helped out everyone. But I am, believe it or not, so thankful for those days of going without, because I'll never forget them, and it taught me the value of $1. And I'll actually leave a link to a video down below that I posted up, almost 3 years ago, where I got my first console. It was a Nintendo, and I keep on asking my parents, where did they get the money to get this? Because that's what I was concerned about, because I knew that they didn't have a whole lot of money, and that was about the time period that things were starting to turn around for me and my family. But that's why value, I think, is so important to me. And it's not just with games, of course, but that's what we're talking about now. So it drives me crazy to see games coming out from major publishers, games from publishers that we're used to getting a complete set. We're used to getting a full single-player campaign, a co-op, and a full multiplayer. And now they're coming out more and more with half of that content while still charging the same price. I think Titanfall was like the first game that I can recall pulling it. It may not have been the first, but it was definitely the first one that caught my attention because it was, such a big game at the time. And still, again, I thought the game was great. In fact, I still think it was one of the best shooters that I've played this gen. But it was so lacking in content from the start and definitely wasn't worth $60. And then you had Evolve that was, again, online only. And now, a couple of the biggest games this holiday season. Star Wars Battlefront, no campaign. It's launching with 12 multiplayer maps, which is what some full games launch with as far as multiplayer goes. Rainbow Six, you've got it launching with 11 multiplayer maps, no campaign. Now, Ubisoft has stated that all future DLC maps are going to be free with Rainbow Six, but some games do that already. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every game has to have multiplayer and single player. That's absurd. Games like Skyrim or Fallout have tons of content and value in them. And I don't even mind multiplayer-only games, even from big publishers. But when it only launches with almost the same number of maps of what a full game does, for say a Splinter Cell or a past Rainbow Six game or a past Battlefield game, why is it still $60? And also what drives me crazy is how some publishers almost go overboard when it comes to spoiling us. And I think those publishers should be acknowledged and rewarded. Look at a game like GTA. Whether you like the game or not, you cannot deny that they packed in value and content in that game for $60, and it is insane. And they still, to this day, continue to push out free content. I was on just the other day. They had more content for me to play, and it had been, a few weeks or months since I had last picked it up. You've got Halo 5 coming. Say what you want to about Halo, but you cannot say they aren't delivering a full package. They've got full campaign, full co-op, launching with 21 multiplayer maps, and they've got 18 free DLC maps coming over the next year. Not to mention a Forge mode, which basically means you have unlimited number of maps. So I'm going to be completely honest. And, some of you may even look at me as a hypocrite, because I'm probably going to succumb to some of my desires and play some of these games and be a bit of a hypocrite with some of these games that I'm talking about. And no doubt it bothers me. I've had a lot of fun with these betas. These are games that I want to play. And maybe they end up delivering value in the end. I mean, I guess we're going to have to just wait and see. But I think you have to have tons of content there, tons of mode, tons of maps. And I'm not sure that on paper right now that these games have that. And so for me, a $60 game, when half the content is missing, just doesn't feel right. Especially when so many other publishers continue to deliver tons of content for the same price. So, just so you know, even though you might be seeing me play these games in the future, although I may be enjoying my time with them, that doesn't mean that I agree with the practices of some of these games. And if you choose to wait out for a price drop or a deal, which I'm sure is going to happen around Black Friday or, some other time, then I would not blame you one bit. Money is the only thing that talks with most of these companies. And like I said, I'm torn myself. I want to play them, but at the same time, I almost feel dirty because I know the content is getting smaller, yet we're still paying a premium price. So post your thoughts below. Is the value of a game oftentimes, too often, overlooked whenever you read a review, do you feel? And do you think that too many of these games are giving us half the content while still giving us a premium price tag? That does it for me, The Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.